Hi there, and welcome to episode 43 of the ADHD Adults podcast. I'm James Brown, pretend professor and amateur podcaster, and as usual, I'm joined by the medieval LARPer voted least likely to persuade people he has a non-spherical head 2019, Dr. Alex Connor. Hi, Al.
Ding dong.
Ding dong.
Yeah.
That's the best you can come up with.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. Anyway, how are you, Alex?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, very excited. Still baffled by the tens of thousands of people who listen to this every month. And one of them has sent a letter. It's Robert from Kidderminster sent us a letter, James.
Oh, what a surprise.
I'm seriously stoked.
Okay. Oh, really? Okay, carry on.
It says, Dear ADHD Adults, long-time listener, first-time writer. That's nice. It says, I just wish I'd lost, forgotten, or mislaid James in the 80s. Fair enough, Robert. Thanks for getting in touch.
Cheers, Dan.
I have a real message from a listener who is called Charlie, because we're asked, which we almost never do. I'm very proud. He sent two, and James has changed it. The first one wrote, Alex's shirt is made out of leftover Top of the Pops 1972 with a whole lot of love. A whole lot of love, a whole, etc. He's even, which he did. I think it was reflecting an old thing. That's not the Charlie letter we sent. Charlie wrote, thanks, you've changed it. I like it. My impulse buying stopped almost overnight after starting Meth Offender Day. I was buying stuff, enjoying the anticipation, but once it arrived, I put it on a pile and forgot about it, and then went and ordered something else. Repeat. I had periods of focus on random subjects that burned bright, then shifted. Oh, yeah. History of wrestling, learning Polish, DIY, 70s sci-fi magazines, etc., etc. James, I do the ticket things, planes and things. Alex, you're a cock, and so am I. Oh, God, every line of these are me. Derek Bowie, question mark, laugh, laugh. Such a brilliantly ADHD letter. We really laughed about it. I'm not sure, Alex, you're a cock thing, but everything else I really like.
I'd just like to say thanks to Charlie. I think you've got the letters spot on in one or two places, particularly the bits about Alex being a cock. I think that's one of the better letters and one of the more insightful letters we've got, Alex, isn't it?
I love learning Polish DIY. That's funny. Internationally, James, we have 120 countries. So that's either 120 listeners or 13 really well-traveled listeners. So a big habari na Karubi to a Tanzanian listener. James, wasn't that Tasmania? I don't know.
There is no fucking chance you've got that right. I don't think you even... Isn't it Tanzanian, not Tanzanian?
I know Canadian, right?
Yeah, whatever happens, you fucked that up. So well done. Right, okay. So, I mean, you wouldn't know if it's right anyway, because I guess you got it from Britannica Encyclopedia rather than a website, didn't you?
I got Ask Jeeves.
Ask Jeeves. 1997 calls, wants its search engine back. Anyway, thanks for that, Alex. As usual, this portrait of a lady painted by an elephant's trunk of a podcast is a tragedy in 3 parts. We choose a theme. In the last episode, we talked about ADHD and grieving for what might have been. And this week, we're talking about ADHD and prisons and criminal behavior. We also have a brilliant guest who is currently a fabulous coach for entrepreneur adults with ADHD. She currently coaches clients from different parts of the world and is happy to say, currently crime-free. Hi, Maria.
Little bit. Hi.
How are you doing? And more importantly, why the fuck have you agreed to come on this podcast?
Well, as you well know, I'm here to grow my ever-expanding kingpin crime syndicate. Actually, I've agreed to do this boom splash of a podcast. I've been waiting so long to say that on a podcast for 2 reasons. To support people that may have gone down the same path as me, and for another to spend a little bit more time with you for some reason. I'm not sure, but I love it.
I'm assuming that's me singular and not us plural, because spending time with Alex it's like sticking needles in your eyes, really, isn't it?
James, can we do a podcast where we discuss people who use plural and singular forms of you? Because some languages do that and some don't.
No, we can change it. Why would we?
It's a whole thing.
Why would we do that, Alex?
Oh, next time then.
Anyway, Jesus Christ, it just makes my head explode when he talks. So thank you, Maria, for that. As usual, The 3 parts of the podcast include some evidence-based psychoeducation delivered by Balloonface over there,
Hello.
our personal reflections, which are going to be very limited on this, and that's why we brought a ringer in Maria, on what the theme of ADHD and prisons and criminal behaviour is. And then, I don't know, top tips, whatever that's going to be in part 3, that Maria can probably tell us about, because Alex is so squeaky clean. I don't think he's ever even got a speeding ticket. So we'll start off.
Yeah.
Have you?
2007.
Just one, was it?
Yeah.
Doing 36 and a 30, something like that.
Similar to that, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it's now time for Alex, my dear useless colleague, to talk about ADHD, prisons, and criminal behaviour. So fire away, cockface.
Thanks, James. Hi, Maria. How nice to see you, as always.
I love.
Right. Okay, first thing to say is that, as probably everybody knows, 2.5% of adults would meet the diagnostic criteria for ADHD, which is a lot. It really is. But when you look at prison populations, it's about 10 times more than that. And depending on the research, either between 1/4 and 1/3 of all adults in prison would qualify for an ADHD diagnosis. And that doesn't mean they have been diagnosed, of course. And that, we would argue, is a huge part of the problem. Okay, reasons. I mean, this gets even more troubling because those ADHD adults in prison, once released, are also more likely to reoffend. This is called recidivism, James, Latin. And it's a massive financial and social burden.
I've fucking heard of that word before, Alex.
But have you?
Oh, have you? Oh, no.
No, I haven't.
Sorry. And recidivism, this is Professor Brown. Recidivism is a massive financial and social burden, obviously. And anything that would reduce reoffending, that's a key strategy for all penal justice. Or it should be. The other classic problem is the education of prisoners and prison staff about ADHD is also seriously lacking. There is clear evidence of both misdiagnosis and underdiagnosis of prisoners. So the chance of getting help and support to reduce reoffending, that's just not happening properly, mainly because of funding, but also education. Those untreated prisoners are also much more likely to be in danger of self-harm. You don't have to search hard for loads of evidence that treating prisoners would help. One example of several is the Swedish database study that showed ADHD treatment reduced criminal conviction rates by 32% in men and a whopper of 41% in women over 3 years.
That's massive, isn't it?
That's huge. Wow.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Captain Misery Guts. This is, as usual, a list of grumpy problems delivered in a monotonous and boring voice. What do you think we should do about it?
Well, it's thank you. It's education. It's identification and testing and education for everyone involved about ADHD. It's treatment and support. There's more to it than that, but obviously, because of difficult environments, coexisting conditions, socioeconomics, it gets complex. But in a nutshell, it's treatment and support following education. That's it.
So we just do that then?
Yeah, and to do that, everyone, fucking vote. That's...
It's so true. One of the issues is that people probably aren't aware that many prisons aren't run by the government anymore. They're often private, and that means that they will seek to cut costs and to introduce ways of monetizing prisons. So they probably are not that interested in investing in these types of things. So I think actually before we take a break and go into personal reflections, how does that make you feel, Maria, hearing those statistics? And I know, and listen, you probably switched off halfway through because his voice is just so soporific. I do know big words, Alex, you wanker. His voice is so soporific, it puts people to sleep. What do you think when you hear those statistics?
First of all, soporific is a new word for me, so thank you. Credit where it's due. It's a shock. And I know that even despite knowing some of these numbers and having a little look over these, in advance of this podcast, it's still a shock. The fact that the main thing that sort of took me aback is the reduction in criminal conviction rates just through their help actually getting treatment, which you think, simple answer, simple results, you think it would be done, but it's not. So it's quite shocking. But the thing of it is the fact that we're more prone to risk-taking behaviors, poor impulse control. We're way more likely to do things that fall under the line of what's considered illegal, you know, what the laws are against. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me how many people are in there. I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, you say we're prone to risk-taking behaviour. Everyone apart from Alex, who of course is the most risk-averse person I've ever met in my life, and who will often take 3 weeks to respond to a message if I suggest something, because it takes him that long to mull it over and then say, yeah, we should do that. So I think
you need to find out.
But this is about prisons. Well, why are we talking about me again? I don't want to be told off.
That's all I do on this. It's all I do. It's my role on this podcast, Alex. Don't take that away from me.
It is the point. No, it's true. But I also do. You know, I have, even though I'm risk averse. Sometimes the cognitive inhibition isn't there, and you do something fucking stupid.
What? Put the bins out a day early?
Oh, come on! I'm not mad. I'm not a madman.
Right. Well, thank you so much for that, Maria, and so Alex. We'll take a break now, and we'll be back in part 2 for some personal reflections. Obviously, from all three of us who have lots of experience in this. To be honest, it's going to be largely from Maria. So we'll see you after the break. Welcome back to part 2 of episode 43 of the ADHD Adults podcast, where we're talking about ADHD and prisons and criminal behaviour. Now, Alex and myself haven't been to prison. Mrs. ADHD worked in one. I say worked. But like many adults with ADHD, there have been times where in a different life, maybe we would have been. So we're going to get personal reflections from somebody who does know a lot more about it than us, and that's why we've got Maria on the show. So, Maria, do you want to start by telling us about yourself? Anything you want, anything that feels relevant?
I think probably the most relevant thing is how I winded up in prison. I think it's probably a good place to start. I'll tell you sort of a briefer side of things. So I ended up in foster care as a teenage girl. And at the end of foster care, typically what happens is when you turn 16, you're kind of just turfed out. Off you go, find your own way, off you get out of here. And because of that, you know, my skills for self-preservation were limited at best, and sort of within a circle demographic of people that liked nightlife, wanted to go out and party, maybe participated in some risky behavior, including narcotics. So with that mixing pot included the fact that you know, I didn't really have anywhere to stay, and the places that I did have were a little bit dangerous. Just eating my hair halfway through the podcast. Yum. So with that all happening, I ended up, you know, trying to pay my own rent because I was fiercely independent. And my version of independence was being a hustler and being an entrepreneur in whatever facet that came under. I started a dance troupe, I started an entertainment agency, and that was just not earning me money. I was 17 at that point, you know, when I started that all off. No money at all. There was 50 quid here and there. And I was like, I am going to not be able to pay rent or eat, for that matter. There was periods of time where, you know, my dinner would be a can of Nourishment. And I don't know if you guys remember that.
I do, definitely. Yeah. Alex has it every day because he's obviously in his 60s. So he's well familiar with it, aren't you, Alex?
You look gorgeous for someone in their 90s. So beautiful.
Thank you. It's not that hard, is it, James?
I physically cannot say the nice words about you, Alex. The nice words just won't come out.
Wow, nice words aside, this was a pretty difficult time, and I ended up in this circle of friends that it was just kind of the norm that you would get wasted on the weekend and try and put yourself back together again over Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and rinse and repeat from Friday onwards. So little me was like, oh, business opportunity. And I started selling little things like, you know, weed. Started off with weed, you know, little bags here, there. I don't know how in depth I can go when we're talking about drugs. I just want to make sure that it's
as in depth as you want to. We are not in any way judgmental when it comes to substance abuse. Partly because
James and I have both
abuser.
talked about our own substance abuse.
Yeah, exactly. So
whatever
yeah,
you feel comfortable and legal saying.
Yeah, it's highly illegal, everything I'm about to say.
Yeah.
So I started off with weed, then I moved up to methadone, which is MCAT or meow meow, it used to be called. But I bought it online, and you buy it as plant fertilizer back when it was a legal high. Funnily enough, it doesn't actually fertilize plants. I did try it, killed my basil plant. I gave it a go, and I was like, oh, they lied. So, you know, I started off doing that, and things really escalated quite fast because I'm quite now it has to be quick and big and often, and that's how I am with myself in my business.
Mm-hmm.
Now I run a different enterprise, obviously. But it got really big really fast, and I started dealing in kilos of stuff, and it got big, and it got scary, and you start to see the more dangerous side. It started off quite lighthearted, and everyone's friendly, and they're all coming over for parties, and it's lovely, and then you start hearing about people getting kidnapped, bags over their heads, guns in the mouth, axes to the head. And these are all people I know. There was people that got knifed because they owed money. There was people overdosing and being found in their house after 3 days of being in an attic because of this. And it's dangerously close to home, and it just kept getting into my inner circle until it was like, oh my god, these are my actual friends that I'm spending time with that are going through these moments with guns in the mouth and so on. So it was dangerous, really dangerous. And I just remember having this moment in time in December of, I think it was like 2008, and I just wanted out. I wanted out of the business. I was like, I don't know how to do this. I just know that this isn't for me. I started this to supplement my income, and it's just gotten way out of hand. And it was when I was 18, I think it was, and I just found myself taking one of my friends away to Amsterdam, and I was like, how do I get out of this business? And he was like, get your stuff, get everything you've got, go take it out of your house and hide it at your mum's house until you know what to do. Just get it out of your sight, out of your house and whatever. I was like, good idea. Came home from Amsterdam, did it straight away. A week and a half later, this is really fucked up, and I'm sorry, but it is. A week and a half later, I spoke to a friend and got some advice, and I was like, Kelly, my friend, hi Kelly. I was like, Kelly, what should I do? I'm feeling really paranoid about, the fact that I've got all my stuff up here. What should I do? And she was like, that, don't leave it at your mum's house. Just, because that's dangerous for her. Bring it back to yours and you can sort it out. And I was like, you're right. You're really, really right. And thank Christ I did. It was about 4 days later, I was raided. And of course, the next logical step is for them to go to my mum's.
Yeah.
So if they hadn't have found anything at mine, they would have gone straight there. Yeah. And thank fucking God, I took it out of her house and put it back into mine. I ended up getting raided. They turned over the flat, found almost everything, left like ounces of stuff around the place. So I was like, come on, even in Somerset police. Do your job. Okay. But like they found enough to be like, right, your hands are in cuffs, you have to go. I cannot tell you how relieved I was.
Really?
So fucking grateful. Yeah. And it was one of those moments that was like, I've been praying for a way out. I've been hoping for a way out. I absolutely don't believe in manifestation. I think it's a white privilege postcode lottery business. But if I manifested it, thank Christ I did. I just found a way. Yeah, found a way out that was immune to any of my impulses to go back. Yeah. Because there's no fucking way I can go back and deal if I'm locked up. There's no fucking way I can make excuses and be like, oh, you know, just another 1,000, just another 500, just another this, which I was doing till I got to that point and I had to take my friend to Amsterdam for my mind to explode and be like, what do I fucking do to get out of here? So yeah, I got caught, got taken away. And when I was in that jail cell, they take you away in cuffs and plonk you in a jail cell whilst they search your property. First things first is they normally only have you in there for 24 hours. That's the law, at least, you know, more than 10 years ago it was. And what the acting head police officer of my case, I'm not sure what his name or title would be, but he decided to go to a magistrate's court to get an extended time for me to be in that jail cell. So I ended up being in there for 72 hours with nothing but a pen and paper.
and you were 18 years old.
Yes.
Oh, that's just a baby, isn't it?
It felt very, very grown up at the time there, Alex. I felt very grown up at the time. But my God, looking back at it now, what a dickhead. At that age, you literally know fuck all, but you think you got your shit together and it's absolutely wrong. But needless to say, you know, I had my pen and my paper and I asked very nicely to all of these big, scary police officers. I was like, can I please take in my home learning counselling course? Because I really want to be a counsellor. So they were like, all right, no problem. So I had these like printed out sheets and I was like keeping myself sane by writing goals down. And one of my friends, Joel, which I absolutely love this man so much. And he and I are two people that were able to get out of the scene, if you like. You know, we were able to remove ourselves from that group. He still has the list that I wrote out and a little note that I signed, which was start an entertainment agency, go to university for circus skills, try and become a psychologist. I'm not there yet, but I really, really want to be if I can conquer my fucking ADHD. And also get out of dealing and out of Bristol. Yeah. And from that list, everything has been done thus far, apart from obviously getting the psychology degree, which fingers crossed will happen. But yeah, it was, like I said, the best thing that ever happened to me. For sure.
Thanks for sharing that. That's I mean, that's really powerful. I think a lot of people in that situation would obviously view it very negatively and would view what happened subsequently through that prism. But it's great that you're at least able to look at that and say that it was kind of this nexus point in your life where you were going down a route which was uncontrolled and could have led you somewhere much worse, I suppose, than this.
It's amazing. It's hard to know what to say to that, Maria, because it's so. You know, we talk about the problems of ADHD. I mean, it's, you know, losing a pair of glasses. And
you could say ding dong. I don't.
Ding dong.
Listen. Can you not fucking encourage him? I have enough problems trying to deal with him alone.
I will do nothing but encourage this behaviour.
James is one day likely to go to prison for murder. I think we all know that.
Yeah.
So maybe what is it like now for you? So it's a few years on. I'm not saying how many. What's day-to-day life like now for you?
Day-to-day life now, how it compares is so different, and I would only be doing myself justice if I mentioned the fact that I still seek adrenaline highly. And I think, you know, it's a mixing part, as I said before, a mixing part of the fact that I was brought up with quite a lot of, how can I word this? Excitable events, shall we say, that left its mark on me, plus then ADHD. So now in my career path that I chose to be a fire performer. It's risky, it's life-threatening, it's dangerous, I fucking love it. It kind of scratches that itch. And going from being a dealer, and, you know, that's fucking dangerous, that, to finding that same level of excitement within my day-to-day, I'm still seeking where that excitement's going to come from within my coaching work. But I think working in prisons is going to scratch that itch, because that's still a little bit risky, a little bit dangerous. I really want to find my way into that still high adrenaline environment, I think, because I'm still kind of addicted to it, I think, maybe.
Could you coach while you're fire dancing, do you think? I mean, it's difficult logistically,
Yes.
I suppose, but it would introduce an element of jeopardy in the whole coaching process, because you could set yourself on fire halfway through a session. You might not, but I suppose there's a bit of adrenaline there.
I have an idea. If they don't give me the answer I want, I can breathe fire at them.
It's a really good idea. And coincidentally, 2 of James's clients have set themselves on fire whilst he's coaching. Just to get out of the room.
Alex, listen, I'm sorry. You cannot misrepresent me like that. It's more than 2 of my clients who set themselves on fire. Let's be honest. Yeah, it'll be fine. You're right. Maria,
so you coach at the moment. You coach people because you're an entrepreneur. You tend to coach ADHD entrepreneurship. If people wanted to just get in touch, how would they? I know you don't promote yourself very well, clearly. So what would they do? Would they get onto? Have you got an Instagram for your coaching or anything like that?
It's purely smoke signals. I only respond to smoke signals.
Right, refusing.
Just the wafting toward me. So yeah, the Joyful Life Coach. At Joyful Life Coach. I'm such a nana. I'm like the Facebook and the Google.
And is that that's on the internet, is it?
It's on the Ask Jeeves, Alex. It's on the Ask Jeeves. So Joyful Life Coach on Instagram is really the easiest way to just come and find me, for sure. I don't actually I'm pretty similar to you two, I believe from our conversations, is I don't actually like self-promotion. I think it feels a bit gross. It feels a bit sticky. My rejection sensitive dysphoria would never. Would never. But we need to freaking do it. Otherwise, how are people going to know? Do you know what I mean? So come and check me out if you fancy a bit of weirdo in your life, basically.
We've all got some weirdo in our life. Alex's family more than most. So what would you say is next for you, Maria? Do you even know? I mean, obviously you've got plans to do a degree in psychology, but do you have, other than that, do you have kind of future plans? How does it feel now to be where you are?
Super excited. Honestly, I've always been super excited about the future. And also, just whilst I'm saying that as well, I think it's really important to recognize the fact that I was able to be positive whilst being in a jail cell was genuinely down to one of many things, but one of the main things I stick it down to is having plans for the future.
Yeah.
If you've got hope, you've got dreams, and in the absence of dreams, you fall into the past, don't you? And you can fall into existentialism. So looking to the future, really important for happiness. I just want to say that right now. So my future plans, big ones, big ones are really exciting ones. So I want to take on the mental health industry in the UK. Just a tiny little thing that I want to do, small. But with a really personal reason as to why. My sister's been in a mental health ward, we'll call it, psychiatric unit, for almost 10 years. And I've noted and seen visibly, witnessed human rights violations against her.
Right.
More times than I can count on both hands and both feet. So something must be done, and it's not being done. The care plans for patients inside of those units are generalized as opposed to subjective. So there's such a wide umbrella term for people. If you've got X, then that means you go down Y path, which is not good for a patient ever. It's quite traumatic. My sister's just had to go through a very recent moment where they put her in assisted living and then pulled her back into the hospital 4 times across a month without any understanding of when it might happen again and why it was happening. She's got schizoaffective disorder, which means that you're overtly paranoid about people walking in on you anyway, and you don't feel stable and you don't really know reality as well as typical human beings. So you need to know this is what's going to happen, just for that stability, just a little bit of stability. So, you know, a couple of years ago, I created a care plan for my sister, and I talked to her team, including a psychiatrist and her social worker and some of the nurses on the actual ward. And they loved it. It was like 38 different things for her to do across 12 weeks. Thought it was a bit much, but I thought aim high and then they'll take it down, won't they? So at least if you get lots in there, then they can only but, you know, cherry pick. So they ended up using 2 things, and that's okay. But it's not enough, because really in an ideal world, it would have been a minimum of 12 of those things to encompass a really well-rounded release from the hospital. So my big ongoing plans is that I also want to do professional speaking. I want to work in prisons, as you both know. I really want to do that. So I'm working towards that at the moment. I could go on. I've got such big lists, guys. I don't want to bloody bore you.
Listen, you're on a podcast where I normally sit here with Alex, so I mean, hey, you're not boring. But B, fundamentally, my bar for being bored is different to most people because of the time I spend with Alex. Just before Alex asked the next question, it's interesting that you mentioned having goals and having a plan. Mrs. ADHD did work in a prison in the education department, and she would often ask prisoners coming into prison what their goals were, and most of them would even say, "What's a goal?" Didn't have any.
This is so crucial to remember. Like, your outlook on life is state dependent. So if you're in a shit headspace,
yeah, of course,
I'm so sorry, but your goals are going to match that headspace. When you start feeling good, even just a little bit, just like 5% better than before, you're going to start broadening your horizon. So yeah, if somebody's in jail, they're feeling like trash. Maybe their family haven't contacted them, or maybe they've sent them letters and they're hearing nothing back. People get fucking prison. And I should have really spoken a little bit more about actually what it's like to be in prison, because it's fucking lonely.
Yeah. And
it's not because you're not getting punished because here's your time, in a prison. The prison isn't the prison. The isolation is the prison.
Yeah.
The loneliness is the prison. And I spent some time whilst I was inside locked up as a Samaritan. They go around and they teach some prisoners how to do the work and do the listening jobs and whatnot. And I know that you were talking a little bit about self-harm earlier. The majority of the prisoners that I went to go see had just committed acts of self-harm, ranging from small to a lighter to the throat. I got to look after this girl. And I had the honor of holding the space for her after she had tried this with a lighter for ages before she was found. So it was just pussing and scarred and gross. And, she was doing that because she's alone in a cell. She's 18 years old. Her partner had died a week before she was committed into the prison. And she was seeing his ghost at the end of her bed. So she's having delusions or whatever.
Yeah.
Alone in that fucking cell with no one to talk to.
And if you view that through the prism of ADHD, as we've said, a massive proportion of people in prison have ADHD, and that isolation, that being in a small room, whether you're alone or shared, and having very little structured activity, when you've got ADHD, it really must be terrible. Alex is asking the next question. He's probably forgotten where he is on the script, so we'll give him a few minutes to get up to speed.
I didn't know we had a script.
Look at the confusion on his face.
So I already know. Obviously, Maria and I know each other quite well. Maria, I know you were diagnosed with ADHD after prison. So either thinking about prison or thinking about now, actually, what do you think would make your life with ADHD symptoms easier, or would have done, whatever you prefer, really?
In terms of risky behaviour, or in general? In
general, really. Anything. What would help you? Let's start with now, then. But many years post prison. What would make your ADHD life easier?
Oh, I have so many things that alleviate my bullshit. Thank Christ. So what I typically do to help myself feel focused and capable and stop hating myself a little bit, I use something called an urgent important matrix. And that means
hang
that
on, you went again.
Oh no! Can you hear me now?
Back. Yeah.
Great, just in time for me to say, oh no, like Elmo. So I use that urgent important matrix in my working life. Helps me know how to prioritize. And if you don't know what that is, just Google it on the Google and you'll find it there. It's great. So urgent important matrix. I also then have a dump page where I can write out, oh shit, I need to do that on there, and then feed it into my urgent important matrix. Taking supplements, making sure I have reminders, all that sort of like traditional stuff. One thing that is something that I never realized how helpful it would be, and it makes me feel a little bit like a child, so I don't like it, but I know that I need it. I label the drawers and my cupboards on what clothes go in where. And I dislike it because it makes me feel like a kid, but I like it because I'm actually organized in only the places that I've done that. Only the places
I have
I've
to
done
do
that.
It's I even have to take the doors off drawers so I can see what's in them.
Smart move. Yes, smart move. I got like a bunch of see-through boxes everywhere as well, but what tends to sometimes happen is it's like, oh, that's kind of its cousin, or that's kind of in the same family as that. Let's chuck it all in there. Let's go. Woo!
Right.
So, labels.
We're veering into top tips, which we're very excited about. Prison top tips, James. We haven't got time for the game, is that
no?
right?
We have got time for the game. Fuck off, Alex. As usual, you've written that in the script. We have got time for a game of what's James lost, forgotten, mislaid, done. That's very ADHD this week. So what we'll do, because we've got a guest, is you'll both get to pick a choice, and Maria can go first, obviously, because I don't like Alex. So. This is food related. I'm trying to eat more healthily because my diet is fucking appalling, to be frankly. And I'm trying to introduce green things, apparently they're healthy, into my diet. It's not going well so far. So what did I do wrong? As usual, there's three options and one of them is true. Did I, number one, forget to introduce any green things into my diet? That's first option. Did I, number two, while making a smoothie, keep the peelings and throw away the fruit? Or did I, three, make my fruit smoothie and then leave it in the fridge until it became all frothy and very untrustworthy? Maria, you can go first.
Okay, I don't think it's three because that would have meant that you'd gone through the process from start to finish.
Good logic.
I am going to go with, I could actually see this happening because I reckon it's definitely something I've done with vegetables. Number two, please, James.
Maria's going number two. Alex, it leaves your choice far simpler, which is good for your simple-minded approach to this. How can you insult me? Because that's normally your approach.
I don't think it is number two because you don't own a vegetable peeler, I think. And I don't think you forgot... I don't think you forgot green things because I've seen you eat 200 opal fruits in a row. So I reckon it's, funnily enough, the title of your sex tape, Frothy Smoothie.
That is actually Grower Not Shower is the title of my sex tape, Alex. Which is a story from a long time ago that Alex is aware of. Okay, so thank you for both answering. The correct answer is number two. So Maria, you're correct.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
Debut! I got it!
This was actually pears, which I carefully peeled and then cut up and then threw all the pears away and kept the pear peeling.
Oh no! Are you jealous that I win above you on my debut podcast with you, by the way?
Well, he cares so little about the game. His performance is so poor now. I think you're under 30%. It's getting to the point where you need to actually bring a ringer in just for the competition. So on that incredibly happy note, we'll take a break and we'll come back with some top tips. See you in a bit.
Welcome back to episode 43 of the ADHD Adults podcast. Part 3, this is where we do top tips. But as we're talking today about ADHD in prisons, probably, James, do you have any top tips, James, on prisons and ADHD?
Try not to go to one.
Fuck.
About the best I can do, really.
Yeah, don't go to prison. Brilliant. Yeah.
My usual standard of top tip, Al. Let's say that.
It's equally as good as your normal. Again, we're going to have. I think this time, Maria, you're going to have to lead on this one. So, if knowing what you know now, what would you say to people with ADHD, diagnosed or not, and prisons?
Well, in my limited experience, you two, having only spent 23 months as a prison.
That's not limited.
Limited. Honestly, my advice would be utilize the Email a Prisoner website if you've got somebody that you know that's in jail or prison, rather. And if you are inside or going inside, because some people may be going through the process and you need to give them the respect as well there, please, for God's sake, reach out. It's the only thing that kept me on the straight and narrow, keeping my purpose and everything, is utilize the fact that you can write letters, spend your time learning, utilize the services, albeit limited, that are in there. Keep busy as you can. And this is just a precautionary tale just based off of my own personal experience, is that just be prepared that not everyone that you're going to meet may have your best interests at heart. Okay, that's the truth. Don't not make friends, but just be aware of who you are picking as friends.
Wow,
thank you so
much.
It is, and thank you so much for sharing that. We've got time for a product recommendation of the week. Alex, do you want to deliver that?
Well, it's more of a thing. Tom, who was a former guest on the show, and my friend. So James thinks I haven't got any friends.
Yeah, so not Tom, not Tom Watson, who you claim is your friend, but the other Tom.
Yeah, I don't have to do my posh voice with this Tom. So he texted me yesterday and said, "My God, did you know that on Gmail you've got 30 minutes to unsend an email you've sent, and it will unsend it and bring it back, even for the recipient."
What if someone's read it?
If they've read it, you can't, obviously, but if they haven't, you can. And that kind of impulsive thing of going, I definitely shouldn't have bloody sent that, or you only notice a massive spelling mistake, or that you haven't had an attachment once you've sent it.
Just to add to that, there's a really useful setting in Outlook, which means you can delay sending an email for as long as you want. So you can delay it for half an hour, and then it just sits there in your outbox. And then if you think, I really shouldn't call my boss an arsehole, you can go back in and not send it. So actually that kind of thing, in terms of the impulsiveness that we have, can be very good. So that was episode 43 of the ADHD Adults podcast, where we had our lovely guest, Maria. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you so much, you two. I've loved it. I genuinely loved it. It's wild. It's quite funny because at the beginning, I'm listening to you two do the intros. And because I religiously listen to your podcast, not that I'm a little weirdo, but I totally am. I was just like, oh yeah, you're in it. Okay, pay attention.
That's brilliant.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on. As usual, if you need to get in touch to ask any questions, then you can get us on social media at ADHD Adult UK. And if you'd like to support the show, support us on the link, because we don't have a lot of money. And pretty soon, Alex is going to wake up in an ice bath with a scar where one of his kidneys used to be. So until next time, nice. It is, isn't it? It'll be me that'll be doing the kidney removal as well. So until next time, we'd like to say goodbye, and we'll see you then.
Bye all.
Trigger warning, klaxon, 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 big klaxon. Trigger warning, klaxon, klaxon, klaxon.